And welcome everyone. We'll take a minute or two here to allow everyone to zoom in from wherever they are. And so take a moment in the chat if you wouldn't mind and tell us where you're arriving from. Kirk, it's so nice to see you. Gosh, it's been a while. And I
Yeah, it's
just
good to
saw
see you,
Hideo.
Janet.
Welcome, welcome. Hello, Desiree. How are you?
Hi, Janet. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Great, great, great. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. You know, connection is one of those human needs that's all about breathing. And that person doesn't get to talk to me. Can you guys hear that? That's good. Just me, it's annoying. There we go. Yeah, we don't get enough of it, right? And sometimes I think that we think that texting, I actually had somebody say to me the other day, I just can't deal with my email anymore. So if you really want to talk to me, text me. And I kind of had one of those, huh, interesting. So rather than resolve the issue of getting too many emails or not having a way of being in your life in a way that balances all the ways you can be connected, you're going to switch to something that's even more speedy. Mm. It's right on theme for today.
The irony of it all. Yeah.
Well, I'll throw out the counter on that. It's right in there with the book Smart Brevity, is that people, instead of leaving a long email, will write two quick texts. And that's the key to me.
And think they've communicated even better. Indeed. Welcome, everybody. We're just taking a minute or two to let everyone zoom in from all the places in the world. If you want to take a minute and say where you're coming from. Desric is here from Jamaica. Lori's here from Mississippi. Steve's from Portland. Kirk from, I don't know how to say the name of your city. Yep, Ryers? No,
Ryerson. Yeah.
Ryerson, Ontario. And I live on beautiful Whidbey Island, Washington State. Just when I look out my window, I can see Vancouver, British Columbia. So pretty close to the border. Ah, and Ottawa is here. Wonderful. That's great. Welcome, Ruth. And Hamad is here from Pakistan. That's okay, Christine. Eyes on the road. That would be great. Roger, it's been a while. Good to see you. And Karen from Orlando, Tony from Utah. Awesome. Tiffany, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Yes, we are a zero geography profession, are we not? Whether you're a coach or a leader who's a coach, human beings really require having that opportunity to be in each other's presence. And the fact that we can do this through technology now is really quite remarkable. I was thinking a little bit about so I'm not afraid to tell you I've been on the planet for a while. I was born in 1959, and in 1959 we still had rotary phones. And I suspect there are a few of you here on this call that don't even know what that looks like. I don't think they even exist, except maybe in an antique store. And you didn't have an exchange at the beginning. You just had four numbers to dial. Yeah, crazy, isn't it? And wow, it comes full circle. What do we do with text? It's in our contacts. So we press the name and poof, we have an instant message that's been sent off. And I think I share the story to say, I think there's so much that while we are enamored with the advancement in technology, it takes a little while for us to catch up. That our humanity really requires a different kind of pace. I used to only think about this in terms of the leaders that I would work with and the organizations that were worried about their culture. Were we attending to people well? Were we preserving the things that have been enduring in our company for 10, 20, 30, 40, some 100 years or longer, while technology was changing so radically? how we do our business, how we interface with our customers. And they think about it in a transactional way. Often what I would see show up on the other side, so check this for yourselves. What shows up for you with your workforce, with your teams, with your customers, whatever role you happen to be in? That at the end of the day, if they weren't connected to themselves, they couldn't see what was disconnecting in the culture. And this is what we often refer to as systemic thinking or horizontal thinking, beginning to understand the cadence, the flow, the experience that people have moment to moment on the job is the reflection of the culture. So if I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off from one meeting to the next with no breaks and realizing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon I haven't had anything to eat, huh, how is my action a reflection of what's actually occurring inside the culture? Take it to a different context. We say to organizations that in order to grow, you have to first scale. In order to scale, leaders must be willing to let go of authority. They must be available to allow someone else to step up into capacity and resourcefulness. And as a result, free them up to be able to look towards the future so that we know what direction we're headed in. And as the team gets stronger, they can have more responsibility. And then that leader has more responsibility. And lo and behold, more customers are served and the organization grows. Yes, I'm simplifying a little bit. But what was the key point there? I have to let go. I have to let go and I have to believe that somebody else can step into a fuller capacity. I won't do that. If I'm defining my success by the results I produce, and the results I produce are focused on my transactions, my effort, my productivity. So that's really the genesis. I'm just giving you a little of the background thinking. I absolutely grew up that way. I'm a child of two working parents, three older brothers. I had independence at 4. And the mantra was keep your head down, work hard, and everything you're looking for will come your way. Yeah. I was in the 7th year of my professional life in financial services, and they had to go to the board to get an approval to raise my salary to the minimum. I was so far below. I never stopped to ask for a raise. I just figured it would come. I didn't know any better. Wow. And I was burnt out. So there were many long nights of, oh my gosh, this can't be all that there is. And in many ways, I think I turned to coaching in 1996 because I began to recognize that if I didn't accept responsibility for discovering what balance meant to me, what wholeness meant to me, what my agency was for choosing the way I was experiencing my leadership and how I was being with my team, then I was going to continue to be in a cycle of burnout. Boy, aren't we seeing this right now? Now, we can blame it on the outside, all the chaos and craziness. It doesn't matter what continent we're walking on as a human being. There's chaos and a lot of intense, complex change going on. But even with that, every single one of us has the power of choice. Are we exercising it? And this is what I found for myself. It's what I find with almost every single leader that I'm working with, that they have forgotten that they have the power of choice in how they're relating to their lives personally and professionally. You know, the subline that says, this is the paycheck you can't deposit. That beyond the paycheck is really where our satisfaction is. And this was also born out of are many of you Gallup data followers? You guys look at Gallup research? Okay. So they have been running a longitudinal study on global flourishing. And as it turns out, all of this is wide open. So if you just put Gallup Global Flourishing, you guys can find the research. It's quite extraordinary. um, close to 200,000 participants over a 5-year period. And I'm going to tell you what the categories are. And maybe as I read these off, just make a little note to yourself, is that anywhere in my reflection time? Do I think about each of these elements and the choices that I'm making? So the first one is happiness and life satisfaction. The second is mental and physical health. The third is meaning and purpose. The fourth is character and virtue. The fifth is close social relationships. And the sixth is material and financial stability. And yes, they're in that order on purpose because it's what the data revealed. Anybody want to guess what country on the planet was in the #1 position of global flourishing? You can put it in chat if you've got a good guess based on those 6 criteria. Finland is in the top 20. Oh, interesting. Norway, Denmark. What part of Africa, Tiffany? That's a whole continent. Sweden? Are you all going on vacation to Scandinavia? My goodness. Close with Bhutan. Nope, not Singapore. All right, I won't keep you in suspense. It's Indonesia. Now, if any of you have been studying happiness for very long, you know that there is an inverse correlation between uh, financial assets, financial worth, and happiness. That there is a point when you get to a certain amount and your happiness starts to drop. You can probably figure out why. We get activated about responsibility. We sometimes also get attached to our material things as if they are our identity. Consumerism would be a subject we won't talk about today, but certainly is an element of this. We start to lose our connection to our humanity and the source of our happiness, and we replace it with material things as made possible by our financial wherewithal. But the data is quite clear. And the number, interestingly enough, over the last 20 years has not changed very much. So adjusted for, currency fluctuations, it's around $72,000 USD. As you get over 72,000, you start to chip away at happiness associated with financial security. Fascinating. Ultimately, what they've seen in this 5-year study is there are 3 things that are super important. The first is inner cultivation. Now, I remember when EST came around in the late 60s and into the early 70s, and lots of people on the planet thought these were crazy people looking at human potential, contemplating their navels to figure out what was it to be a good human being. Well, many of you probably realize that coaching came out of that. Not directly, but indirectly. Coaching manifests as a beautiful dialogue process through which people began to discover, who am I? If I'm not my job title, if I'm not my result, what the heck does it mean to be an adult human being? There was a parallel process going on, more in Western Europe. Well, certainly it transited itself across the Atlantic. That was all about performance. How do we optimize performance? Um, Mindset now is everything you hear in sports, for example. We're realizing that these 2 rivers of how do I perform better? How do I perform all of myself? How do I bring all of myself have now come together into one river. Coaching is one expression by which we produce that outcome for people. So why? That has nothing to do with your paycheck. Yes, Clients come all the time saying, I'd like to get the next promotion, or I don't want to work for this company anymore. I want to work for a company that's got big purpose. Okay. What has you being at this company in the first place? Oh gosh, I don't even remember. Hmm. What is that telling you about the company they work for and how they're attending to culture? Yes, it is a circular conversation. And what's the common denominator? It's us. So the beyond the paycheck that can't be deposited is right here, right now, in this room. Who are you? Who do you know yourself to be? And in what way are you consistently, deliberately, intentionally, wholeheartedly bringing all of who you are at the essence of yourself? That's not my main question for you today, but it's certainly a good one to hang on to. Maybe those 6 categories will give you some places to reflection as we go. All right, I think everybody's arrived. Nobody has come in the room or come for me to admit in the last 30 seconds, so let's go ahead and get started. So here's the truth. You've achieved. Every single one of you wouldn't be here. You've produced in your life and you've climbed. And still, I bet there's a little bit of a whisper. Boy, did I hear it. Is this it? I left corporate life to be an entrepreneur for that very reason. I was the top of my game. I had the house, I had the salary, I had the community, I had the friends, I had the accolades. But boy, I really wasn't that happy. You're not broken. The model is, and that's what we're here to talk about today. It isn't about productivity. It really is about bringing some clarity to the experience you have of your whole life. One of the other things that Gallup talked about is that 83% of the human population in developed countries, and that's a little bit of a pejorative, so more modern economies where we're not having difficulty finding enough food to eat or shelter or clean water. I'm not talking about the parts of the country where that is true. Sorry, the planet. I am talking about people who have employment and a basic economic and social system. 83% of them report to Gallup that they're pretty happy with their personal lives. And that's been true since 1979. That number has not moved. 21% is the number for active engagement inside of organizations. What does that tell us? It tells us that there's something out of date, that the script, the mantra, the encouragement, the counselor in our high schools, in our colleges, the people we look to mentor us inside of organizations. I mean, even the language in the 90s and in the early 2000s was, do you have a sponsor inside the organization? As if ever achieving is the most important thing. It is partially, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I think there's an alternative, and this is the work we do at inviteCHANGE. What is it to live a generative life and begin to rewrite a definition of success that is far more based in the essence of who we are individually and in the collective we choose to keep. You know, uh, that great phrase, birds of a feather flock together. I used to think that was a good thing. And then I realized that if I only talked with people who thought like I thought, I was never going to grow. And it also explained a thing or two about why I was always the renegade. I had more than, oh, I think 9 or 10 different roles in my 14 years at Charles Schwab and Company. And I started to catch on that they would give me the project nobody else would do. The ones that were too risky, or they were, handling closing down a business or dealing with a very upset part of the customer base, things that were, a little tough, tight, or tender, because I didn't seem to mind. I didn't seem to mind how hard it was. Now, I was still proving something to the world that I was capable and competent. I hadn't found my way home to know, wait a minute, I already am, and I do have the power of choice. And when I learned that, it unlocked a different quality of presence, something far more relaxed, something that gave myself space to say, what do I care about? What's important? What is my sense of life purpose? And with that came a great deal of peace, which sent me out into the world as an entrepreneur. But by golly, I repeated the mistake again. And about maybe 8 years into being an entrepreneur, I realized that I was living on airplanes. I had no personal life. I had the cool condo on the beach. I had the income. I had all of the trappings of grand success. I wasn't happy. And my physical well-being started to go. So, what's the cost of chasing the wrong kind of success? Not just for you, but for your team, your colleagues, your collective, your family, and your sense of well-being. How are you even defining well-being? I'm going to stop talking for 20 seconds and just let you linger with this question. What's the cost of chasing the wrong kind of success? Mm. What's the way you experience burnout, Cameron? Um, you don't have to disclose, but to be noticing, you know, all of us have many ways of recognizing, having ourselves notice that, oh, my physical well-being isn't quite right. I was telling Ahmad earlier, I haven't been traveling on airplanes very much, and I just had two trips back to back, pretty much back to back. Oh, I got to go to the chiropractor tomorrow, and I'm doing some body work on Friday because my body's like, what is this airplane seat all about? And the time zone change. And oh, wait a minute. When I was younger, I would be on planes 6 out of 7 days a week, pretty much 52 weeks a year. Yeah. The speed that I operate on, the motivation lever lowers. Good noticing, Cameron. Yeah, exactly, Sarah. Um, that kind of the internal competition. Which part of ourselves are we paying attention to that's defining what success is for us? I think there's some cracks in the model. Certainly the one that I learned, that my value is defined by my activity. Was I high activity or low activity? If I was high activity, I got more opportunities, and more opportunities meant more people to play with, more opportunities for promotion. Along with it came money, exposure, relationships. And if I didn't color too far outside of the lines, I might get a promotion until I didn't. I got passed over twice and I was like, huh, wait a minute, but look at my results. Oh, but it wasn't the only thing that was important. And ultimately, while I was busy doing all the things that the external world told me was important to do in order to get respect, internally, I didn't have it. I was pretty exhausted. I actually I took a whole year off, took a sabbatical, sold my interest in the company that I had built, and started all over again. And this is why I'm talking about this. So ask yourself, just give me a little chat, yes or no. Have you worked for someone who had the title, but not the presence to be credible? Like you knew there was a certain manipulation, or that their ambition was more for self than it was for the team or for the organization. Someone who kind of dressed the part, but you could never find a place to connect and really get to the quality of connection that we see when when someone vulnerably shares what their life experience has been. If you've, yes, Tiffany, yes, I remember the story you told me. Um, you may have had the experience of working for someone who was congruent through and through, and bless you, I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I know that one of the people who was not like that was the president of Charles Schwab and Company. Chuck was the chairman. This was our president. And after he had his heart attack, he stopped yelling down 2 or 3 floors from the 28th floor. He stopped stomping in the hallways. He stopped throwing things across the boardroom table. And he was quiet and he had grace. And he'd walk down the stairs and he'd come to your office and he'd say, I was looking at this last report you wrote. There are 3 things in here that I'm really appreciating. And I also wonder if you're open for some feedback. It was a measured, calm, very conversational. Like this person transformed, but it took having a heart attack and almost not being on the planet before he got there. I think one of the reasons why I'm a coach is because, from my point of view, we want people to be here. We want them to have flourishing families and be part of community. And work just isn't everything. It is something and it's important, but there's got to be a different way for us to be with it. Now, I said I would come back to this connection and growth. And this is, you're getting my bias here, folks. But I just have this, I had this realization the other day that to be human, the thing that happens when we're born, we immediately go into the hands of a doctor, a doula, or a nurse, or all 3. And then the next is that the child is placed on the body of the parents. Connection starts from the very beginning. And we have a whole group of pathologies around attachment disorder. Terrible thing that we're naming it. And what are we talking about? The absence of connection. Babies who are not touched in the NICU don't make it. There is a wonderful story, you probably can still find it on the internet, of twins. One was not doing well, and so they pulled it out of the crib with its partner and put it on its own breathing machine. Still wasn't doing well. And the nurse just decided, you know what, I don't think this is working. And she put the one not doing well back in the one with where that was doing well. And then she turned her back for just like 10 seconds. And when she turned back around, the one who was doing well had put his arm around the one not doing well. And the vital signs had already started to change. This is what I'm talking about, that there is as normal as breathing, need for connection, for our hearts to beat in mirror resonance is what it's talked about in neuroscience. The other impulse is to grow. Of course, that's what we do until we take our last breath on the planet. Now, take that concept, right? That's a big concept, big meta idea, and make it really practical in your everyday life. We have a loneliness epidemic. CHROs are talking about mental health and mental well-being as the most important thing for them to address this year, and probably a little bit longer, as people cope with, will my job go away? Or you're a graduate coming out of college and you're being told there will be no entry-level positions for those of you that want to climb the ladder. What's that? It's all about growth and achievement. So we want this. Growth can be that kind of stature, financial impact oriented things. But growth could also be, oh, I've begun to recognize that I am a creative. Look at what I do at home in my garden, or look what I do when I prepare meals to entertain for my friends and family. Connection and growth are like breath. If they're not present, we do not survive. And we follow people who have presence, that have figured this out. They speak more clearly and they're trustworthy as a result. And they also crave bringing calm. These are the ones who can take a very intense environment and provide everybody with the certainty necessary to move in a direction that will have things be better. Another study that came out not too long ago, um, from SHRM, and the 4 things leaders must attend to for followers. Hope is higher at 68% than trust at 33. And hope is defined by clarity of direction and creating optimism. Now, you can only offer this, right? You can be that voice of presence, that place of clarity that people find trustworthy, that moments of calm in the midst of chaos. If you pause long enough to find it in yourself, this is what's beyond the paycheck that you can't deposit. You know, so many high performers uh, end up, I don't know if this is true for you, but they end up in a deep quiet in coaching sessions when they realize that they have absolutely been part cause or agent, sometimes eyes wide open, purposely said, I'm going to do this thing on a dead run, only to realize it wasn't as satisfying. You know, the dopamine culture, always chasing, never arriving. Success fatigue is real, and it isn't really burnout. It isn't that we didn't have enough energy to be successful, but we're succeeding at something that isn't aligned with the essence of who we are. So, when was the last time success actually felt satisfying to you? Take a moment and see what just naturally pops up. And pay attention to whether your body is actually feeling some stress of that. When was the last time success actually felt satisfying? Here's the alternative. Success 2.0. Presence plus purpose plus people. It's not less ambition. It's aligned ambition. What did I come here for? What is my life purpose? Why did I incarnate into a body? Why am I in the time frame that I am? Why wasn't I born later or earlier? I'm sure the youth who are looking at the state of human impact on the planet, wondering, why am I inheriting this? How come I'm here now? Like the generations before them that wondered about, why am I in the Civil War or why am I in World War II? I'm not sure we have answers to those questions. But what we do know is that when we are true to ourselves, to our values, to our principles, to the things that are unique in our own expression, and we're present that way, we are with the people that enliven us, and we in turn reciprocally enliven them. What am I talking about? Experience beyond activity. It's not what we do, it's the beingness. I know that's a little jargony. That's be not do, or human beings, not human doings. But I think what I've come to recognize in working in large organizations is that the people who ultimately sustain for a long time in an organization are the ones who are remembering their own humanity, and then they sprinkle that everywhere they go. There's no need to control. There is a desire and a commitment to bring out more in other people, to have more to play with. This is what I mean by congruence beyond compliance. You know, all of the research on why somebody goes to an organization says that people sign on because there's something in the purpose of the organization and in the values espoused that aligns with who they know themselves to be. And they go through the interview process and they check to see, are the people that I interview with in any way matching to what I read on the website or in the news or on Glassdoor? And then They say yes, they get an offer and they say yes and they come aboard. And now the real rubber meets the road. Is the boss that I'm with, are the colleagues on my team behaving in the same way that, the best foot forward during interview shows? My guess is not so much these days, because what used to be an average tenure at an organization of 5 to 7 years is 16 to 30 months before we move to the next job. So there's much more here about legacy, as I was introduced to it early in my professional life, was what will you leave behind? I'd invite you to think about this as a living legacy. The adage of leave something better in a better state than you found it. That's a living legacy, an active legacy that's beyond the resume, which is really more about the results or the outcomes. So before I go here about constructing your Success 2.0, I'm going to just pause and open the space. You can open your microphones if you want. You could use chat, doesn't matter to me. What are you mulling? What are you mulling over with the questions that I invited you to ponder? Oh, come on, Ruth. You can come off mute.
Well, I feel like I'm in um, a different situation because I was very burnt out and I recently retired and now I'm studying to become a coach, actually. And I'm here because you're a guest lecturer at my class and I wanted to hear more from you. So, but I'm thinking about the organization that I just left and how many people at the level I was at, which was senior management, are in this state of misalignment with values and what it means for the larger organization and all of the people underneath them. So that's what I'm mulling over, is the impact of actually just staying in that state on the long term. The impact on me was health and all kinds of other stuff, but the impact on the bigger picture and even the public that's being served by that place is huge.
Yeah, so you're seeing the ripple effect. It can feel like, well, it must just be me. I must not fit here anymore. It must not be the thing that floats my boat. As we think it's just us, and it's not. We're living inside of a system that's tolerating a way of operating that actually backfires. It stops producing the customer experience that allows for prosperity and growth to occur. And we don't see it often until it's too late. So you see, organizations that have fraud, or they start to have a serious attrition problem that they can't get their finger on the pulse about it. Somewhere along the way, we made activity and effort more important than relationship. Like the transaction and relational aspects of work are way out of balance. It's not an either or. We need both of them. And it takes the out of balance state before we recognize it. I think in a lot of ways, this is why coaching came to be. That many of us ended up in a coaching capacity because we recognized, wait a minute, these organizations are too toxic. And nobody's seeing it. We're not pausing to notice and name what's actually driving the change in the experience. What if I could help people recognize the experience they're having and pause long enough to simply ask the question, is this what I want? It always cracks me up. We every now and then there's something out on social media that says, what's your favorite coaching question? And everybody says, what do you want? But here's the trap. Nobody spends any time thinking about it because they think they don't have time to think. Boy, isn't that a circular argument, right? So unless we accept that responsibility to pause and pull back for perspective and ask ourselves, what is my definition of success? And I was just with a group of folks from in the association world. They serve veterinary service boards, science boards, sorry. Anyway, we were talking about SMART goals. And they could reply, what do all of those letters stand for? Specific, measurable, actionable, reasonable, and time bound. And I said, and how's it going for you? How are you doing with delivering on your SMART goals? And they just all started laughing. And I said, what's the missing element? And it took them a little while. As you notice, I'm pretty good with staying silent. And somebody finally said, we don't know what it looks like. We don't know what the evidence is. And I said, how do you know whether you do or don't have it? Well, somebody else tells us. It's a measure out there. And I said, so what's the connection between not knowing whether you are doing something that feels successful and your sense of satisfaction at work? Oh, well, that opened up a whole other Pandora's box. That's part of why I wanted to take some time to invite all of you to reflect on this. First, personally, what is your definition of success? What is the way in which you are navigating your choices every day? Am I selecting, prioritizing, investing my life force in things that I know are going to have a positive ripple effect that continues to increase my experience of whatever it is that I use to define success? Anybody else want to add something in here? Yes, Tiffany, it can happen that way. It can go on for so long that you find yourself in an environment that feels so toxic that you give up. It feels hopeless. And yet, you only know hopeless if you know hope. So at some point, we pull back to say, what is one thing I could do differently today that will keep me connected to my sense of hope? And you've been doing this, so you know what I'm talking about here. You know that the minute you get out a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or maybe a physical meeting and you're thinking to yourself, how could people be so unkind to each other? In that moment, you can say to yourself, who do I want to be more kind with from that meeting? Who could I call on the phone right now and say, I really appreciate that you were there today? Why do we think gratitude practices are so popular? We're all trying to find this rebalancing effect. And it's the noticing that if I know the negative, I only know it in the contrast of what it could be. And in that moment, you're activating aspiration, probably also imagination, and you're getting a little bit of serotonin instead of dopamine, which becomes addictive. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll come back to that in just a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's what I think the shift is. If you're going to construct Success 2.0, instead of titles and trophies as the focus of attention, cultivate the experiences that matter. And when I think about experience, it's the emotional feeling, the physical sensation, the resonance, that getting the goosebump feeling, having my mind's eye begin to imagine something that doesn't yet exist, but could, because my excitement, my whole being is activated by what we're discussing. From measuring output to honoring impact. Ooh, this is a big discussion right now with lots of organizations that productivity isn't king. If the quality of the experience of your workforce does not allow them to produce that same quality when they're talking to their customers. Burnt out customer service people are the worst. Yes? Oh my gosh. I've come to figure out how to cajole and connect personally with a customer service person before I tell them my story of woe. And it does help, but I can tell it's temporary. So leaders who know how to honor impact help people find their way to what to prioritize based on the purpose of the organization. So rather than performing for approval, we're leading from personal congruence. I came here because there was alignment. Let me be part of creating a workplace climate that matches what we say we stand for. Doing more faster? Choosing what's meaningful on purpose. Human beings don't have a destination. Human society doesn't have a destination. What we want is conscious, deliberate, intentional, wholehearted living. That means that we've taken some time to think about that. From leaving a legacy someday to generating legacy in every interaction. So that's a little bit of a rubric. Achievement without getting alignment with your interior self is erosion. And fulfillment really isn't optional. It is the fuel for longevity. Read any of the stories out there of the people who are in their 90s and now over their hundreds. And they're going to talk about the joy in their life of the people, the relationships, the way in which they were able to serve in whatever way was true for them. Fulfillment is the fuel for longevity. So as you look at this next piece that I'm going to walk through, I'd like you to notice what beliefs surface for you that you might challenge a little bit. See what is true. Contribution. This is what releases oxytocin and creates lasting motivation instead of the dopamine addiction, which often will result in feeling frazzled and scattered and short-fused. And if it's led to perpetuate, it can create mental illness. One of the CHROs saying, yeah, mental well-being is our #1 problem for the next at least 12, if not 24 months. Accumulation only stimulates momentary highs. This is I'm going to go buy myself a new suit jacket, or I'm going to go buy a new car, or, fill in the blank. In the moment, it might be satisfying, and then we have to pay the credit card off. Alignment. And in this case, it's practices. It's not a thing you do once. It's a way of behaving, conducting, relating, focusing, perceiving, evaluating. These are practices that help us access sustaining energy because we're asking ourselves, is this choice in front of me honoring of who I am at the core of myself or not? And ultimately, Soma knows. I just like the way it rhymes. I'm talking about the body. That's what Soma is. And it always knows when your work matters. And of course, the contrary, when it doesn't. So are you listening? Do you listen to your body when it says it's tired or hungry or the headache's coming on because you haven't had enough water to drink today? Yes, I'm talking about really simple things. But guess what? When you're in the middle of we have to make a decision for this press release to go out in the next 15 minutes to help our consumers know why this recall is happening and what we've done about it, and you're not well hydrated, rested, and aware, gonna make mistakes, sometimes really costly ones. So where are you right now in your careers, in your professional lives? What's something you have named as a challenge you're facing that isn't solved by knowledge? Sure, large language models and all of the agent tools that are going to be made available to us over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, phenomenal transformation about to happen. But it's all a history. What we have is ingenuity. As humans, we have the power of imagination. We can have deductive imagination through large language models, but intuitive imagination is the human domain. And what's needed is our authentic whole presence. So, everybody got a challenge written down? If success weren't about you, and instead about the impact you generate, what would you change? What would you change in your daily practices if it was about the impact you generate? And just give you a moment to write a couple things down. All right. I'm going to give you an opportunity now to do a little bit of a breakout, and I'm going to give you something in chat to play with. This is called the, hang on a second, Generative Success Framework. All right, let me make sure everybody can download that, access it and download it. It's in chat. It's a PDF, so it should be easy. Just give me a thumbs up so I can see that you've got it. Oh, Lori, wonderful. All right, thumbs up. Am I seeing thumbs up? Yes, yes, looks like everybody's good. All right. Let me go. Oh, look at that. I don't know how to do that, Ruth. You're gonna have to show me.
I don't know what happened actually.
It was raining up thumbs. That was very cool. All right, I'm going to put you into triads so you can support each other to explore 3 questions. You'll have the framework to take away and work through on your own. The 5 elements are included in it, but I want to give you an easier way to drop into it. First, what story about success did you inherit? That's the first question to talk about. I told you mine. I inherited, keep your head down, work hard, and everything will work out. Not so much. Where is that story limiting your joy or impact? I clearly was not getting seen. Oh my gosh. And then the third question, if you could redefine success now, what would it include? All right. So you'll have 30 minutes together, and somebody take responsibility to manage time. So each person gets um, their full 10 minutes. So let's see. Oh, good. That's going to work out just fine. And let me just do this here. Okay. I think looks like we're in good shape. Okay. You should get a join button now. And I'll put these 3 questions into the broadcast for you so you have them there in case you didn't get them written down. Okay. Have fun.
Like some soup? Oh, I thought you were disconnected.
Are you gonna jump into the room, Janet, as well? Oh, you're muted.
If you want to go to a room,
I'm fine here. I mean, if you want to go, I can stay here. If anyone jumps in, anyone else, and guide them.
all right. I need to,
Just make me co-host before you go.
yeah, I will do. Okay. What story about success did you inherit?
Hi, Janet.
Hi.
Sorry, I popped back in. I think the other person I'm in the room with is not a real person. It might be their AI taking notes for them.
Oh.
So, yeah.
All right. Let me hang on a second here. All right, Hannah, let's see where we can put you. And Derek, Desric, the same thing happened to you, huh? We should put you 2 together.
Yeah. Perhaps,
That's
perhaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, why isn't that's interesting. It's not giving me a way to do this. Why don't you guys play here?
Okay.
Does that work?
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, now I'll go off screen so that you guys have your privacy.
Sure.
Have fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
got you. I got you.
And I think this is what the literature is. We're talking a little bit about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We were just finishing up in our room, so welcome back, everybody. And it's something worth just giving some airspace to in your reflection that if we start from the premise of belonging, oh, by the way, coaching is based on the premise that we are already whole.
Ah,
We have all the resourceful, capable, creative aspects as a
mm-hmm.
fully formed human from the day we're born. And we spend our lifetime accessing it and learning to express it. We belong. We belong to the human race. We belong to planet Earth. And we're always discovering all day long, every single day, in the way in which that is aligned and congruent with the essence of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it is from that place that we make choices. So this notion that you have to have your physical and financial security taken care of, and then you take care of your skill acquisition, and then you take care of, and then you take care of, and then you take care of, and then you can actualize. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been my
Mm-hmm.
experience that for myself personally, when I stopped chasing, I was a lot happier. And at first, I wasn't making any money, but it wasn't but about 5 months in of being an entrepreneur. I was billing 18 days a month and I was too busy. I was like, how did this happen? Because I was
Wow.
congruent, right? So I just think that there are some things that we, the other really good one here is that, thoughts create motion in the body.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The body
Yeah.
always knows first. And when
Yeah.
I started to listen to the body, I could feel tension. I could feel emotional upset. I could feel harmony. I could feel joy and laughter coming.
Mm-hmm.
I could learn to witness it in other people. And that brought me emotion. And then it had words. It was
Mm.
completely opposite. So I just invite you to, where you have assumptions, maybe you've got some habits and preferences, what we might call a bias operating,
Mm-hmm.
to give yourself space in your reflection time to say, what if it's the opposite? Or what if it's
Mm.
just turned 15 degrees? Then what would I see?
Mm-hmm.
And the more we get comfortable, all of us, in being able to adjust what we believe and realize, oh, beliefs are constructions, which means I can deconstruct the belief and
Mm-hmm.
ask myself, what most honors the essence of who I am?
Mm-hmm.
And then reconstruct. Honor the
Mm-hmm.
belief, by the way. So don't get mad at the belief. Just don't go to the place of, oh my God, how did I believe that all these years?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the belief comes in for a good reason. At a moment in time, it is what we want in order to feel a sense of belonging, well-being,
Mm-hmm.
um, safety, which means
Mm-hmm.
lots of different things to people.
Yeah.
And we outgrow them. We outgrow those beliefs. We grow into more of our wholeness, and we realize, you know what? I don't need that protection that that belief is giving me. It's actually holding me back now. Those of you that are new in coaching who are thinking about launching an entrepreneurial career, you're wondering, will I ever replace my salary that I was making when I worked for somebody else? Well, it
Mm-hmm.
depends on how you're defining salary. So, Hannah, you were describing having only 2.5 days in your week when you felt like you could be all of yourself. Oh my gosh, look what the wealth you're going to get back by transforming how you're spending your time. This is what we're talking about. Beyond the paycheck is an opportunity to construct success on your terms. It isn't all about the outer trappings. And in fact, I cycled through this several times before I finally hung up my addiction to productivity and effort in favor of being in my bliss, which I get to do. as a coach and as an educator and as a consultant. I don't have a job. And as a result, I have tremendous well-being at 66. I feel like I live 30. So think about it. Just think
Yeah.
about the assumptions we
Yeah.
all make. Yeah.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
about the rest of you? I had the benefit of being able to listen in for Desric and Hannah's work together. Anybody else want to share anything that popped for you in the time you got to spend in breakout? You know, for coaches who are talking all the time, you get awful quiet when you're together.
I think we just really, my group, I was so excited. I had Hideo and Tony in with me, and their presence was just so powerful. And I think we all had very similar, sort of awarenesses and what we've done to bring us to a different place in that presence and in that joy. And it's not only nice to, it's like, I think about this a lot because we're in this sort of completely different space with each other. And people can say it's COVID, but we started doing virtual conversations with people long before that, right?
2007, all our programs were live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but whatever I am aware a lot of the time about how I am with my family or I'm with my clients or team members, but I haven't seen friends in forever. I haven't, had this experience in forever. I haven't, gone to work in a coffee shop like I used to sometimes just to get out of my office. And so I think we all talked about those things, those little things that bring us, to a level of more centeredness or to more presence with ourselves and what's working and what we're grateful for. So that was really nice that we all had that awareness.
Yeah, good. Good, good, good. How do we value what we give our time and attention to? When we place value or priority, for example, on serving someone else to the detriment of getting enough sleep, just going back to the physical, or to the detriment of time with our family. How many times have we listened to a client who had regret because they hadn't been close to their family and somebody dies? And they feel the guilt of not having been with that person. Cats in the Cradle is a wonderful song that's all about this. The dad who was too busy and before he blinked, his son grew up. And then the pattern repeated itself. So there's something in us, in our DNA as human beings that longs for a balance, an integration between the transactional and the relational. And when we apply that then in the organizational setting, what do? We leave our families, we go to college and we create friends, which is repeating family creation. And we go to work and we do the same thing. We pick a team to be with and they're our family. And then we wonder, how did we get so estranged from our nuclear family? Was that really by design or was it the choices that I made? Not good, not bad, just is. It is what we choose. And if we can slow down enough to say, if I chose more deliberately, what would I create? And this is the key. It isn't just, oh, I'm going to do that because that looks better to me. Grass is greener on the other side, switching jobs. Well, you're kind of going to that new job, which means everything you experienced on the old job you didn't like, you're taking with you. Maybe I ought to stop and think about how did I show up not liking it? Like what happened? Was it me or was it the system or was it a little bit of both? And when did I first notice that something had shifted for me? Did I give it my attention? Did I give it my care to say, you know what? I could choose something different here. I remember being with a team that was absolutely at each other's throat. It was a very high stakes project. And one day I just brought in a whole bunch of koosh balls. Do you guys know what those are? They're rubbery
Yeah.
and they're fun to throw. And everybody was giggling like within 15 minutes. And I said, okay, If you can shift in 15 minutes because of a silly rubber ball, what has you attached to the position you're standing in? Because you're all right. Everybody's got a piece of this picture that's right. Does it really need to have a person be right? There are always many, many right answers. What are you actually fighting about? And at the end of the conversation, it was, we know this is a big deal, and we're all feeling really uncomfortable about whether we've really come to the best solution possible. And what is the question you want to ask, and of whom, to find that out? Well, it's you. I said, is it? What assumption are you making about answers that I have? You're asking whether or not this life and death decision is supported better by choice A or choice B, right? Uh-huh. Who gets to decide whether it's choice A or choice B? And as the conversation went on, there's a whole sponsor committee that this group was working on behalf of. And I said, when's the last time you guys did a report out? It had been 60 days. I said, no wonder you're feeling uncertain. How about you schedule that meeting and let's go find out what anybody thinks about what you're working on. So my point here is that we can begin to feel victimy. We can begin to feel the weight of responsibility. We can begin to feel over-identified with what it is we're working on and miss that we put ourselves there, that we stepped out of connection. And we didn't notice when we first started feeling uncomfortable, when it was not such a burden to talk about, you know what, I think we skipped a step, or there's some data missing, or we could have interpreted this differently, and have that be the normal course of things. All of it ties back to how we're defining success. So I want to show one page in the guide that I gave you just to show you how you might play with this on your own, or your new friend that you just made. All right, is everybody able to see that well? There you go. So these are the 5 elements of Success 2.0. Presence, congruence, impact, collaboration, and legacy. You just did the collaboration together, which is why I didn't talk about it. That was your breakout room. This is just a simple form. What I know is it takes 30 days to build a new habit. And what I'm inviting you to use this form for, and it's all fillable, 1 or 2 activities, practices, remember, alignment practices that sustain energy. Don't put things on here and carry them as I have to do it. That will not work. You will abandon ship. They must be things that you find pleasurable, uplifting. How would you know? In your body, in your sense of, am I excited? Do I lean in like a magnet pulling me forward? Or am I leaning back and my voice is very monotone? So take for existence impact. One of the things that would be in the impact category for me would be restoration. Am I so personally? I'm seeking to feel a sense of restoration every day, and so the commitment to action. I have to be outside at least an hour, at least an hour every day, hearing the birds, being on the land, having an opportunity to not be sitting at my Zoom screen, for God's sakes. Another is going into the garden and weeding. I know that sounds weird, but I love weeding. It makes things neat and tidy. And I get great joy when I'm doing that. So for me to have an impact on my restoration, those are 2 practices. And then at the end of the week, take a moment and say, what did I notice? What did I notice about my experience? So that's the purpose of this, is to give you a way to get clear in the questions that you answered, and there's a few more in the document itself that you can play with, and give yourself some simple practices to begin to strengthen your habit in those 5 areas. And on the end of a week, or maybe you do it for a few weeks, print it off and use several pages, begin to see, how is this shaping what Success 2.0 is for me? That's what we're inviting you for. All right. Any questions about that and any other comments from your breakouts before we move on? Just have a couple.
I'd like to say that I got the, incredible honor of meeting Jovita and finding out that we have had very analogous paths, kind of like what you said, Lori. You got into the group and you could see all of these things, and to see both of us have just this incredible heart for uh, elevating women and working with women executives and helping them. And it started really young, and noticing the inequities and looking for opportunities. So one of the things we're talking about now that I'm approaching my 8th decade on the planet, she's in her 8th decade, is that what's our new dream? What's our new dream? And always having the practice of living from a dream and then creating that reality. What's the new dream? And being willing to take the time to use some of these questions to really prompt what's next. So it's really valuable and an honor to meet you, Jovita.
That's good. So good to see you here, Jovita. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has. And I'm glad to be here. And meeting Sarah has been actually a little transformational. It's made me do a lot of thinking. And Janet, it's been a long time, and I'm so glad that you're still here doing your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So as you heard me say, one of the things that our work at inviteCHANGE is all about, what is that saying? Yes, please do. Is the generative life. And there is a lot to that. Jovita, this will look familiar, somewhat familiar to you. When I was first introduced to this idea of learning to discover one's essence and negotiating life, intentional choices and actions, meaning I'm in charge of imagining the experience I want to be having emotionally and physically, maybe even mentally and spiritually, as if it's already occurring, is like tuning my instrument to see the opportunities in front of me. And as I worked with this, Fran Fisher's original design back in when ICF accreditation was happening in 97, 98, and 99, she had a program called Living Your Vision. And it was about clarity, action, and results. And over time, we've learned more and developed more. And so what you're seeing in front of you is the vehicle for generative change. That if you are having results, you're taking action and having results you don't like, stop, pause, and reflect. And the first step is alignment, which is what we were doing today, is talking about what are the alignment practices. In other words, there's always some basis, some policy or principle or value, something that is strongly influencing the reason you chose a certain set of actions that produced a result that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Rather than making the action wrong, the key here is to notice, oh, maybe the premise I had was not taking into account everything that was actually occurring. So that next step in shifting your mindset is getting clear about the beliefs, which is what we were doing at the beginning of our time together. What belief was having me adopt that principle, that policy, that value, that premise? And where might that belief not actually match what's going on? So now we're in reflection on awareness. What was I aware of and I discounted or disregarded or dismissed completely? That now that I see it, oh, I think I've outlived that belief. I want a new belief that would have me honor a different value that seems to be far more valuable and influences a new set of actions to produce a different result. I don't know when I do this process whether it's going to happen or not, but it surely won't happen if I'm not being intentional about what is most honoring of who I am. Shifting one's mindset is one of the most empowering human capabilities we possess, and it is the key to having something be sustainable in terms of change. So I often get asked the question, what's What's the difference? And traditional coaching really initiated for performance. How do we get better? How do we achieve our goals? And it's often very transactionally focused. What we're doing in generative work is much more about the quality of presence, the experience I'm having, the experience I am producing, and it's sovereign oriented, meaning self-ruling, giving, we say in the competencies, giving clients the power of choice. Well, that's true for us as coaches too. How am I accepting responsibility that I have an inner authority to decide how am I going to relate to my life? And in that instant, when we ask the question, we have begun a transformative process. So you've just heard 3 stories of aha moments that happened. And let's open the floor a little bit. What shifts when you lead with this new success narrative? Desert, I'm remembering what you were talking about as an HR professional. What do you think happens in the organization when you lead with this new success narrative? Are you still here, Desiree? Ah, did he go?
He's here, but he may have popped in. I know he was in a meeting. He popped in and out.
Oh, he might have popped out of a meeting. Okay, that's all right. Anybody else want to comment on that? What would happen? What do you think would happen by living from that new success narrative?
I think you feel more at home in yourself. You know, we talk about people who are comfortable in their skin and just being aware of what makes you feel comfortable and the choices that you make to support you with that is a big part of it. A lot of times people tend to give up their choice or boundary, which creates an even more extreme situation at the workplace. Because sometimes it's like, you know, I always ask if I suggest something to someone, even in training, it could be business writing or public speaking or whatever, and they would say, oh, no, we can't say that, we'll get fired. And I'm like, you're not going to get fired for something as simple as that, especially if you're a performer. But there's this ingrained fear of losing the paycheck.
Yeah.
And people give up their power before they're even asked to give up their power.
Yes, exactly. And that is a great example of the broken success 1.0. So the accumulation that we do that's tied to that financial reward for the exchange of our capability in the organization becomes a trap. And we don't know how to get out of it. And we don't realize that until we get out of it, we don't understand how exhausted we are. And so the actions we can take, the practices for restoration don't happen.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we are responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this is how we think about what gets cultivated. Whoops, sorry, my mouse is being crazy. This is what we think gets cultivated when we're living in a more generative way, that we begin to see what others miss, our power of observation. When we're not so distracted by chasing something out in front of us, but we're available in the moment. If you're a leader, you're going to turn a team's conflict into deeper trust because you will not let it go by. You'll not ignore the fact that there's a little bit of friction going on. You'll lean into it to say, what wants to happen here? What's important for us to discuss and clear the air about? You learn to listen to emotion and energy that helps us when things are uncertain. Okay, what's creating the uncertainty? What could we imagine that would be more certain? How do we all begin that imagination process? We start to produce results from a centered clarity so that we're examining where are all of the resources that are available to facilitate outcomes and evolution. Nothing ever stays the same, never has, never will. It's the nature of a living organism, not just humans, but everything on the planet in this ecosystem we call Earth. And ultimately, I think what part of why coaching has taken off over this 30 years is it really is about evoking ownership, kind of returning home to being the captain of our fate and the, oh gosh, come on, help me, Carol.
Master of our destiny.
Master of our destiny. Thank you, Sarah. Exactly. Nelson Mandela's fabulous lines from Invictus. And this is where we begin to create spaces for identity level change, where people realize that from belonging, many more things are possible. We see more options available to us. And leaders who operate in a generative way are building cultures of trust. That there are going to be moments when we are on that trajectory towards burnout, and it's up to us to notice it and say, hang on a second, take a breath, pause, let's pull back for perspective. What else is happening here? This is what it means to be generative. And that's our body of work. Many of you here are quite familiar with this, but we've brought a brand new product to market that I just got finished working with a team of 12 with, Conversations Made Better. How to have every conversation every day always be available for generativity. And then being able to help people to make the transition from well, this is the way it's always been done around here, to realizing, well, maybe not the way it's always been done around here, because the longer you hold on to that historical way, the less available you are for the change that's happening right in front of you. How do you create adaptability? How do you create resilience? It is about loosening our grip on anything that we think is static, because it just isn't. That's not the way of the world. And of course, coaching certification, our certified generative coach and generative team coaching cert, and our level 3 program for those who are on their way toward the MCC development. And of course, our wonderful main course, Authentic Self-Presence. And then I said to the team, let's do something special for this masterclass. I just feel like, I don't know if this is true for the rest of you, but it's certainly been my experience that the level of intensity that clients are showing up for coaching sessions, whether it's teams or individuals, it doesn't really matter, although teams often amplify it. The level of emotional intensity and the feeling the need to either escape it or figure out a way to get rid of it is overwhelming people. And we name it as burnout, but I actually think it's a harbinger of wanting something else. And I think the something else people want is to come back home to themselves, to come back home to the core of who they are. And that particular program for us is Authentic Self-Presence. So we've added it to the rotation. We're going to have a program that we'll do starting at the end of August. And I've cut the tuition. The full price on this program is $1,750, but some percentage of that I'm going to give to the ICF Foundation. Their work, I'm just so proud of the ICF coaching community. We now do pro bono coaching on all continents. Well, maybe not penguins, sorry, 6 continents. And for 16 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are so many extraordinary projects happening. And so we're going to give a gift to the first 20. That's all we can take in this program for the offer that's happening in August at a lower price point, but take some of that difference and give it to the foundation in celebration of our 30th anniversary. So that's what we have for you. And I left one more closing question for you. Couldn't help myself. That's what happens when we're coaches. What's one belief about success you're willing to leave behind because you came here today? Write it down, circle it, highlight it, keep it close, make it possible for you to put the alignment practices in place to move into Success 2.0, whatever that is for you. And of course, keep in touch with us. And I hope we'll see you next month. As many of you know, we're running this masterclass series for free all year long. And in July, we'll be looking at the myth of belonging, Hannah. Why great cultures embrace difference, not sameness. So lots of cool stuff for us to play with next month. And that's on July 23rd. And this is a hyperlink. You'll all be getting the, because you registered, you'll all be receiving the PowerPoints and the information for how to join us next time. Yeah. Take a nice deep breath, right? You let yourselves hit pause on your busy lives and you spend a couple of hours investing in you. I'm grateful. Thank you for your time and your attention. And acknowledge yourself. It takes courage to challenge our habit, preference, assumption, and bias space. And yet the reward is so good when we can live out of the core essence, the heart of who we are. And I wish for all of you that you find some more moments of bliss and fewer moments of feeling the intensity that the outer world provides. Hideo's practice of, well, I'll let you talk about it, but you have some wonderful practices for restoring that sense of calm, calm in the midst of chaos. It is something each of us has the capacity to do. We simply must choose it. All right. Are there any questions, follow-up questions, anything else that wants to be said? The floor is open. Just hanging with each other, huh?
I'd like to hear what you were talking about from Hideo.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
I know,
I
sorry,
just-
that was a terrible setup, Hideo. I apologize.
I just practice it 15 minutes zazen every morning to to find myself or just being present. Being present. So yeah, that's a very powerful. Yes. For the last 10 years, yeah, I've been told that, which is good, but yeah, I didn't do. But once you start practicing, oh, that's very kind of meaningful to me. Yeah, it works.
Thank you.
We have everything necessary to completely alter our neural system. Completely. Through the breath, through visualization, through practices like Zazen, practices like Tai Chi, whatever is your way of quieting. And remembering that you're part of an indivisible whole in this ecosystem called planet Earth. I find that very relieving, actually. After I watch the news and think to myself, why are humans not so very nice to each other? Okay, hold on. What I can do is walk in the world in a place of grounded center. And I know that's contagious to others. Yeah. All right, everybody, please go safely and well. It was good to be with you today. See you in a month, if not sooner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.